It usually begins subtly. You can't recall the specific moment it started. Only that at some point between childhood and today, you internalized that peace must be earned. That affection was conditional. That love was a prize for good conduct, not something you were worthy of just for being you. Maybe it was the glance from your father when you interrupted, or the quiet your mother deployed when you let her down. You couldn't grasp the rules, only the repercussions. Each time you did something that displeased them, a scowl, a heavy breath, a turned back, you felt a sinking deep in your chest. You vowed to yourself, never again. This is the origin of people-pleasing. It's a dialect we acquire before we even comprehend language. Not from kindness, not from generosity, but from a need to survive. When your security, your inclusion, and your self-worth are linked to the happiness of others, you mature believing harmony is your duty. You assume your role is to mend the atmosphere, to occupy the quiet, to set everything right, even when it isn't. And that is the devastating reality. People-pleasing frequently begins as a child's tactic to remain loved. Most individuals believe people-pleasers are simply nice, overly charitable, perhaps too empathetic. But that isn't what's truly occurring. Deep down, people-pleasers are terrified. Terrified that if they decline, they'll be unloved. Terrified that if they let someone down, they'll be forsaken. So they contort themselves into forms that no longer resemble them. They beam when they're irate. They consent when they're depleted. They ask for forgiveness for things they never did. And every time they do, they drift further from their true selves. You may not grasp it, but your nervous system retains those early lessons. Every reprimand that taught you to be silent. Every dispute that taught you emotions are hazardous. Every unspoken mandate that told you to be simple, tranquil, and yielding. Those weren't mere moments, they were outlines. The human brain grows through association. When you're little, your brain connects safety with whatever prevents you from being disciplined or rejected. So if being good meant remaining quiet, that's what you did. If being helpful meant prioritizing everyone's needs, that's who you became. And eventually, your sense of self morphs into a reflection of everyone else's expectations. That is what people-pleasing truly is. Not an imperfection, but a survival mechanism that has outlasted its original setting. But here is the issue. When you become an adult, that mechanism continues to operate. Even though you are no longer that vulnerable child, your body hasn't realized it. It still responds as if you'll be penalized if someone is distressed. It still overwhelms with anxiety when you picture someone being disappointed in you. And thus, you continue to perform, continue to smile, continue to assent. Because somewhere deep inside, you still think your safety hinges on it. Consider how frequently you say yes when you mean no. How frequently you agree merely to prevent friction. How frequently you obsess over what someone might think of you, re-examining conversations in your mind, searching for the instant you might have misspoken. That's not fragility. That's conditioning. For many, it originates with emotionally detached parents. Parents who are erratic, unreliable, or emotionally aloof. One day they are affectionate, the next day frigid. One moment they are proud of you, the next they are let down. So you learn to track their moods like radar, scanning for emotional squalls before they hit. You begin to mold your behavior around their responses. You scrutinize every tone, every sigh, every look, because that's how you endure in that home. And gradually, you transform into someone else. Someone quieter, someone more agreeable, someone who doesn't make waves. You don't even notice it's happening. You just absorb that your emotions are inconvenient, that your needs are excessive, that your boundaries cause people to withdraw. So you enter them. You smile instead. You mend things. You tell jokes. You become the mediator, the one everyone adores because you never make them uncomfortable. But internally, you're exhausted because you can only hold your breath for so long before it begins to ache. The most tragic part? Many people-pleasers confuse their fatigue with kindness. They claim, I just care too much, or I dislike conflict. But underneath that is fear. The fear that if you cease giving, no one will remain. Psychologists term it fawning, a trauma response alongside fight, flight, and freeze. When confronted with a threat or disapproval, instead of protecting yourself or fleeing, you placate. You say whatever maintains the peace. You attempt to make others happy so that you don't feel endangered. It's not that you wish to betray yourself. It's that your body knows no other method. And eventually, this pattern seeps into everything. Your career, your partnerships, even your friendships. You become the dependable one, the one everyone seeks out, the one who repairs everything but themselves. You believe if you're good enough, calm enough, accommodating enough, people will at last recognize your value. But instead they begin to rely on it. They stop regarding it as kindness and start seeing it as your function. You become unseen, concealed behind your own courtesy. But here is what most people fail to see. Being a people pleaser doesn't actually make people love you, it just makes them comfortable. And there is a distinction. Comfort is fleeting. Love is unconditional. When you spend your life attempting to be what everyone requires, you deny them the opportunity to love who you truly are. Because how can they love you when you never reveal yourself? That's why so many people pleasers feel isolated, even when surrounded by others. They give and give, hoping one day someone will reciprocate. But affection born from compliance isn't affection. It's control in disguise. So what is there to do? First, you must unlearn what your childhood impressed upon you. That is not simple. It involves facing the uncomfortable reality that perhaps your parents weren't always correct about what love entails. Maybe their definition of good was actually just quiet. Maybe their definition of respect was actually obedience. You see, our parents don't always intend to wound us. Many were doing the best they could with the knowledge they had. But pain doesn't vanish just because it was unintended. You can forgive them and still recognize what it did to you. Because pretending it didn't matter is how people-pleasing endures. Every time you mute yourself to keep another person comfortable, you replay the narrative your childhood authored for you. You tell yourself, the truth is, saying no isn't cruel. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Disappointing people isn't a failure. It's honesty. It's growth. It's the journey of becoming real again. Because here's the secret no one shares. You don't have to earn love by pleasing people. You earn love by being genuine. The more you pursue approval, the more it evades you. But the moment you cease performing, when you finally allow people to see your imperfections, your limits, your truth, that's when true connection starts. Naturally, that's frightening. If your entire existence has been founded on keeping people happy, being genuine feels hazardous. It feels like walking into a tempest without protection. You'll want to revert to old patterns. You'll want to apologize for being yourself. But remember, courage isn't the lack of fear. It's acting despite it. Every time you say no and endure, your nervous system learns that you are safe. Every time you speak a truth and someone remains, you disprove your brain's old programming. You rewire the definition of love. And slowly, bit by bit, you begin to grasp that love isn't something you must win. It's something you can construct with honesty, with respect, with boundaries. It is not your duty to keep everyone happy. It is your duty to be whole. But the healing journey doesn't begin with saying no to others. It begins with saying yes to yourself. Yes to rest. Yes to honesty. Yes to imperfection. Yes to your own tranquility. Because when you stop trying to manage everyone else's emotions, you finally have the capacity to feel your own. And that's where you find yourself again. Beneath the facades, beneath the compliance, beneath the years of feigning that everything is fine. You meet the version of you that was there before the fear. The one who didn't need to perform. The one who simply was. That is the version of you that deserves to lead now. But here is something powerful. People-pleasing doesn't mean you are broken. It means you were astute enough to survive something that demanded self-effacement. It means you learned empathy amid chaos, softness amid noise. You became emotionally astute because you had to read people to stay safe. That sensitivity isn't your fragility, it's your superpower. The aim isn't to extinguish your kindness. It's to liberate it from fear. True kindness isn't about maintaining peace at your own cost. It's about appearing as your complete self, even when it might make others uneasy. It's about giving, not from a fear of losing love, but from the abundance of already possessing it. And that single shift alters everything. You start to discern the difference between connection and compliance. You start to feel the quiet power of a well-placed boundary. You start to realize that saying no isn't rejection, it's direction. It guides you back to what truly matters. Healing from people-pleasing is like teaching your body a new language, one where safety arises from truth, not from approval. It's clumsy at first. You will falter. You will over-justify. You will feel guilt for establishing even the most minor boundaries, but persist. Every uncomfortable no constructs the foundation of a more authentic yes. Because the real question isn't, how can I make them like me? It's, can I like myself when they don't? And when you can answer yes to that, you are free. Part 2 continues seamlessly from here, diving into how childhood conditioning molds adult relationships and how to finally escape the loop of emotional dependency and reclaim your identity. The most difficult aspect of recovering from people-pleasing isn't establishing boundaries. It's confronting the quiet that ensues. Because when you've dedicated your entire life to being what others require, the moment you cease, people take note. They withdraw, they inquire, some even become angry, and it stings because you believed that love was reciprocal. You believed it was unconditional. But in truth, it was contingent on your compliance. That is the point where most people-pleasers relapse. The guilt feels intolerable. The fear resurfaces. You begin to think, perhaps I am being selfish. But you are not. You are just no longer sustaining a system that depended on your self-effacement. You are not defective for wanting to be seen. You are just accustomed to being invisible. And that is why the initial stage of healing is grief. Grieving the love you never genuinely received. Grieving the childhood where you had to earn tranquility. Grieving the relationships that only lasted because you supported them. Because to stop people-pleasing, you must concede something painful. You were conditioned to believe your needs were a burden. That conviction doesn't evaporate overnight. It persists in small instances, in how you apologize when you've done nothing amiss, in how you minimize your successes so you don't make anyone uncomfortable, in how you over-justify when you simply mean no. These habits seem benign, but they are signs of a profound misunderstanding about love and worth. You learn that love is something you purchase with good behavior, that safety is something you earn by never being an inconvenience. So you became an expert in adaptation, a shapeshifter who could merge into anyone's expectations. But when you constantly adapt, you forget who you were before you started to bend. That's why people-pleasers often feel adrift when asked simple questions like, "What do you want?" or "What do you need?" Because for years, the answer was never about you. It was about whoever was standing opposite you. You became fluent in everyone else's emotions but your own. And that is not your fault. See, when you were growing up, your parents constituted your entire world. You relied on them for everything: food, shelter, affection, safety. So if love seemed erratic or conditional, your brain didn't challenge them. It challenged you. Children don't think, "My parents are emotionally unavailable." They think, "I must not be good enough." And so commences the lifelong endeavor of proving your worth. You strive to be the perfect student, the perfect friend, the perfect partner. You believe if you can just do everything correctly, no one will ever depart. But what you're truly attempting to mend is an old wound, the one that whispers, "You're only lovable when you're useful." That wound becomes the bedrock of your identity. You begin to equate peace with control. You become hypervigilant of other people's moods because unpredictability once felt like danger. You can detect tension before it's voiced. You intervene to smooth it over before anyone asks you to. You label it empathy, but deep down, it's vigilance. It's your nervous system declaring, if I can keep everyone happy, I'll stay safe. But safety constructed on suppression isn't safety. It's self-abandonment. And that's why people-pleasers often feel anxious even when nothing is amiss. The body doesn't trust calm because peace feels foreign. Your brain continues to hunt for signals of rejection, for disapproval, for the next emotional storm. Because chaos, as agonizing as it was, feels like home. It is a strange paradox. You crave love, but you dread it simultaneously. Because love, real love, demands honesty. It demands boundaries. It demands you to show up entirely as yourself. Something you've been taught is dangerous. So even when someone attempts to love you for who you are, you instinctively retract, afraid that if they see too much, they'll leave. So you continue performing, you continue pleasing, you continue pretending, and gradually, your relationships start to feel vacant, not because others are indifferent, but because you're not truly in them, only the version of you they anticipate. That is the hidden toll of people-pleasing. You forfeit connection not just with others, but with yourself. And lacking that connection, life starts to feel muted. You might find yourself encircled by people, but none of them genuinely see you. You might be commended for being so understanding, so selfless, so kind, but deep down, you feel unseen, unheard, unloved. Because how can anyone love the real you if the real you is never permitted to exist? So how do you start to alter something so deeply embedded? You begin by learning the distinction between kindness and compliance. Kindness stems from choice. Compliance stems from fear. When you act from kindness, it replenishes you. You feel expansive, grounded, at ease. But when you act from fear, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being misjudged, it depletes you. You exit the conversation feeling diminished. That is the moment you must pause and ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid not to? That question can transform your life. It helps you identify where you've been surrendering your power, not from love, but from fear of losing it. And once you begin to spot that pattern, you can start to rewrite it. Healing from people-pleasing doesn't mean becoming cold or selfish. It means fostering balance. It means recognizing that your emotions are also valid, that your comfort, your time, your peace, all merit the same respect you afford to others. You can care profoundly and still maintain boundaries. You can be kind and still say no. You can love people without shouldering the burden of their happiness. But here is the challenging part. When you first begin setting boundaries, it will not feel empowering. It will feel wrong. It will feel like you are violating the rules. That is because your body equates boundaries with rejection. But that is just the old narrative replaying. Continue practicing anyway. Every no you utter teaches your body that honesty doesn't sever connection. It defines it. You will observe that some relationships diminish. That is acceptable. They were founded on conditions that your new self cannot uphold. But others, the ones that withstand your honesty, those are the ones worth retaining, because they are built on truth, not on performance. Over time, you will start to notice something beautiful. Peace no longer feels vacant. Stillness no longer feels hazardous. You stop apologizing for your existence. You stop needing everyone to like you. You start liking yourself instead. And that is when everything shifts. You see, people-pleasing was never about other people. It was about your inner child striving to feel safe. So the genuine work isn't persuading others to love you differently. It's learning how to love yourself in the manner you always required. That means reparenting yourself. It means becoming the adult that younger you needed. Someone who says, you don't have to earn love. You already are it. You can begin small. The next time you feel guilt for saying no, remind yourself, this discomfort is growth. The next time someone is upset with your boundary, remember, their reaction does not define my worth. The next time you catch yourself over-explaining, halt mid-sentence and take a breath. You do not owe the world a justification for existing. That is how you slowly recapture your life. One moment of self-honesty at a time. And here's what you will ultimately realize. Peace isn't discovered in keeping everyone happy. Peace is discovered in being authentic, even when that authenticity creates waves. You were not born to be agreeable. You were born to be whole. Your parents might have taught you to conceal your feelings to avoid conflict. They might have led you to believe that good children don't talk back, that silence is strength, that self-sacrifice is love. But you are not a child any longer. You are permitted to choose differently now. You can choose honesty over harmony, truth over approval, love over fear. Because the moment you stop trying to be who they needed, you finally become who you were meant to be, and something miraculous occurs when you do. The right people start finding you, the ones who love you not for how easy you are, but for how real you are. The ones who don't need you to diminish yourself to make them comfortable. The ones who can manage your truth, your depth, your boundaries. That is what real love looks like. It is not delicate. It doesn't necessitate pretending. It thrives in the soil of mutual respect. But to experience it, you must allow the old version of love to die, the one you were taught as a child. You must surrender the need to be liked by everyone. You must accept that not everyone will comprehend your change. Some will label you distant. Some will label you cold. But the truth is, you are finally becoming whole. Because you cannot construct genuine connection on self-abandonment. You have to appear as yourself, even when it feels risky. And in that journey, you will realize something profound. The peace you were always attempting to manufacture externally was waiting inside you all along. You just needed to stop betraying yourself to find it. So, when you feel that familiar pull to fix everything, to please everyone, to smooth every rough edge, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, what does my truth need right now? Because that voice, the quiet one that's been interred under years of compliance, that is the voice of your freedom. You do not need to silence it anymore. You do not need to apologize for it. You just need to listen. And maybe for the first time, believe it. Because your worth was never gauged by how much peace you maintain for others. It is gauged by how much truth you can hold within yourself. So, stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to be easy. Start trying to be real. You deserve relationships that don't demand performance. You deserve peace that doesn't rely on silence. You deserve to exist without shrinking. Because love in its purest form doesn't demand that you vanish. It asks you to return, fully, honestly, unapologetically, to yourself. And that is the moment you stop being a people pleaser and start being a person again.